All right, hello and welcome back to the podcast. I am your host, Jonathan, and I'm here with my co-host, Evan.
What up? This is Little Divs.
All our introduction is going to be stupid.
It's just going to be so awkward.
Hey, if I'm laughing, we're all laughing.
Exactly.
So it's a win in my books. What's our episode about today?
So we're talking about the Supreme Effect today, which is our resident Jonathan. He's going to be our expert, and I'm going to drill him with questions in the light of conversation. And so before we get into this, I just wanted to say a quick disclaimer that the nature of our podcast means sometimes we're not expert, or like most of the time we're not experts about whatever we're talking about. And so we're probably going to say some things that are wrong. So I'm sorry about that, but it's all in favor of just having a good discussion about it and being able to talk about it. And, you know, you get to learn something out of it. So we're going to begin by asking Jono, what is the Supreme Effect?
So, like, it's kind of not actually like a defined, like it's not like a saying defined in the dictionary per se, but it's kind of something that's just been observed, obviously from the clothing brand Supreme. It's kind of when a good or service has a far higher price than its actual value, like kind of due to restrictions on the supply or the number available, and kind of also the perceived value of whatever it is. So that's kind of it in a little bow.
You said there's no dictionary definitions, but that sounds like it was straight out of Webster Merriam. So
I was actually expecting you to go with the Oxford. I don't know, like that's not even funny, but like I was really like it caught me off guard.
Well,
like,
Webster Merriam.
That's like the second Google. That's the second Google search, bro.
Anyway, so it's basically like things having more perceived value than they actually have, whether it be due to like exclusivity or somebody's promoted it or whatever, and it gets sold at a higher price. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, it's like the whole kind of I guess the logistics of it get like fairly interesting, but yeah, pretty much.
Okay, sure. So what would you say are like the things that make something have the Supreme Effect? So like what does it need? So we said like exclusivity. Do you think that's an important part of it?
So yeah, so pretty much like so I'll explain it in terms of the actual like thing it came from, this like Supreme brand. It's pretty much like, from what I understand of it, because the Supreme brand, the clothes they make, not to kind of get anyone get on the bad side. A lot of people here. Yeah, get on the bad side of it, but like they're fairly plain clothes that just have a simple logo on them, and the actual cost of making that same clothing is fairly cheap. That's why I see a lot of knockoffs that are super cheap and accessible. But because they actually artificially limit the number of these items available, they become super valuable. And being tied to the fact that they have a social status of wearing them, if a lot of people look at them and go, hey, that looks really cool, or hey, wearing that makes you like, that's actually a pretty cool thing to have, that people want that more. And because there's only so many of them, they're able to charge higher prices because there's only X amount of them. And if you have one of those and it's actually cool to wear that, then cool to have that, then it's that's the Supreme Effect.
Exactly. It's sort of like artificial value placed on it being an exclusive amount. It's sort of like you're going to feel like you're going to be missing out if you don't have it. And, you know, it's like a limited run of something, or the cool people are going to have it, so you want it as well.
Exactly.
One point you said there was that like the shirts or like whatever they produce, the product is kind of cheap and they're selling it for like much more expensive, which does make sense. But do you think, I don't think, since they are more of like a premium product and they are charging so much for it, I would still say that whatever you're getting is still going to be better than just like a $5 t-shirt, right?
Yeah, of course. Like, it's not like it's. I guess it's all relative. Like, it's not.
It's not like they're low quality, but they're low quality relative to how much you're paying for them.
Exactly. Like, you wouldn't pay like $1,000 for a sweater. Not that Supreme costs $1,000, but you wouldn't pay $1,000 for one piece of clothing. I mean, if you do, then why are you listening to us?
Got nothing better to do, obviously.
Clearly. No, but like it's all about like the relative cost of like what you're actually buying, how much it's actually worth on the market, and then how much they're charging you for it. So they're kind of putting into that framework. It's yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So do you think items, or like, do you think for something to have the supreme effect, does it need to be a physical item? Is the physicality like an important aspect of it? And the reason I bring this up is with the prevalence in games now of like loot boxes, for example, in PUBG or League of Legends or whatever, there's a lot of like exclusive skins and they get traded like between players for high prices. Like I remember seeing things in PUBG, it's like thousands of dollars to like get this item. And it is just like a cosmetic item, but obviously it's not physical. It's just like pixels on a screen. So do you think this still applies?
Well, I reckon like it's interesting because like on one hand, it's as a physical item. I guess it isn't really. There isn't much of a difference, isn't there? Because like they both can be like produced and limited in the same way physical products can. I guess it's just like the it's like a slightly different like field of having like we have a physical product where there is actually like a finite like amount they can produce, and it's with the digital kind of thing, they can produce as many as they want. They could just give it to everyone for free, or they can just make it like impossible for everyone to get. So they have a bit more freedom in that. So I'd say that like, I guess it kind of does apply in like digital assets and like kind of in terms of game like skins or whatever. But man, we really just like
well, in real life they can just produce more though, because obviously they're the ones in charge of production, but you're saying because it like exists on a computer they can just do it much more easily. And so would you say it's like more of an artificial like hold on having more of them, like they're making it exclusive like more deliberately? Or
yeah, I guess so. But I guess it's also like kind of that like inflation of like what it means, and the value of it is also like in a different nature. Like it's like kind of like to someone that plays a game, that skin is like the equivalent of wearing that brand of like clothing in real life. So it's kind of like what the buyer puts the value on that to be. So I guess it kind of transfers to anywhere where you kind of can have like a limited like supply and like a heightened like
yeah, true. That's a good point, because like if you see somebody who's better than you at the game and they have like a signature like gun skin or whatever in CS:GO, you're going to think like, oh man, that's really cool, I want to look like that, and so you'd pay more to get that skin. Do you think it's different in the way that they're like introduced into the economy? Because like we're talking about loot boxes before, and so there's like actually a number that says, okay, this item has like a 1 in 1,000 chance of appearing. So it's sort of different to like some people, it has like a rarity associated with it. Like you can put a number to its rarity. It is 1 in 100 or whatever. So do you think that has an impact on it?
Well, the thing is, that's where it kind of gets the value from. I think in games, that's where it gets the value from. It's like, if you go into, like, say, for example, actually, it's not really the same anymore. Like, I haven't really played League in a while, but back when, like, there was the gemstones that came out when they brought the loot boxes into League, and there was a skin called Soulstealer Vayne, which I remember, like, if you saw someone with that, you knew they had, like, a fat wallet, because, like, the only way you could get it that early was if you bought a bunch of loot boxes and open them for gemstones, because you needed a bunch of them, and it was like literally impossible playing normally to get it by then. But like, so I guess in that thing, it's like it's obviously that like classic like mix of pay to win / kind of that gambling factor where you're just pouring money into it to kind of, and that's where it gets its value from, because like, wow, it actually like you have to be either extremely lucky or you just have to put a crap ton of money into this to.
Yeah, so the value does come more from the exclusivity and rather like seeing influencers or whatever, it being a prestigious brand.
But in both cases, they still kind of get their value from like some other source, where also like something else where it's saying this is actually worth this much to you, and it's like whether that actually reflects or not is like a different case. But yeah,
for sure. Okay, cool. Well, the next sort of thing that I want to ask you is, do you think whatever item that is exclusive, do you think it has to be like purely cosmetic, whether it be in a game or in real life? Because we're talking about like brand and you're after the brand image, but do you think it could also apply to things that actually have a function and like you would use in daily life?
Well, I mean, one thing I want to say for games, it's different for games because I think generally gamer populations don't like it when certain items like that are like of function. If they're cosmetics, it's generally fine because you can kind of go without cosmetics. They're just kind of for the flex or the clout or whatever. But if it kind of influences how the game's played, then it's a different story.
Yeah, sure, because it like puts more emphasis on people. Like if you have more money, you're gonna like win more. Yeah.
Like rich people win.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
But in terms of like real life products, like physical products, it's kind of I mean, everything like it's like what are you gonna buy like a Gucci multimeter? Like I don't know. It's just I can't think of like anything that like everything has a use, right? I don't think there's anything like that same kind of what's the word? That same kind of comparison doesn't really apply.
Well,
because
I'm not saying it doesn't have a use, but I guess there are like much cheaper alternatives, and like talking about clothing, for example. I guess it still does
like
have a function,
living.
but it is more just about the brand.
Yeah, you're buying that. You're not buying that because you need a shirt on your back. You're buying that because you want to make sure the shirt on your back is extra sexy. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
Extra bedazzled up, extra saucy. That was too many description words. I'll stop now.
Another like point I wanted to bring up on that is like how vinyl records are very popular now. Obviously, you can just listen to whatever music on your phone digitally, but it is about having, or like, you know, they do like limited runs, limited pressings of it. There might only be like 300 of the one that looks like this. And sort of the point of this is it does have like the physicality to it, because it's different to listening to something on, say, Spotify, because you actually have something that's big in front of you that you can hold in your hands and you interact with. And so, like we were saying before, the physicality of it is actually, I think, pretty important. But even though like it does apply in games still, like you can have this effect, but it's more about the exclusivity. But in real life, I think it is important to have like the physicality of it.
But that's like that just goes back to like that's like for someone that buys vinyls, that's like how they get their value out of it. So you're paying for it in terms of like what you think it's worth to you. So it's like they would pay more for it because they would prefer that physical medium. So I guess that's like we said before, it's kind of the key factor, that it's like people will pay for it what they think it's worth to them, and whether those like kind of factors are actually legitimate, or not saying legitimate, but are like worth it, is like it's up to the person themselves. And like and if it doesn't or does parallel to the actual cost of whatever it is like I guess it might not matter to whoever it is, because they're getting what they want.
Okay, but do you think that's different to, say, like having an influencer, say, like such as Kanye West with his Yeezys? Like they would be much more popular because he is associated with them, but that's sort of removed in this situation. And you're saying it's like it comes down to what you individually want. But
like exactly, well, that's the thing. So in that scenario, so like if you love Kanye West, you're like, damn, I want to cop some of these Yeezys. Like you'll buy them for whatever price he says, because you're like, I love Kanye. So and I love that he made something that like for us to buy. So I want to like support him or show that I enjoy Kanye's work by buying his stuff. And he's charging this much for it, worth it to me. So at least that's what I see it as. Like that's how I kind of envision this kind of like Supreme effect as.
Okay, so are you saying this is the same or different as buying like a vinyl record? Because I guess in the case of like buying a record, it's sort of, you are still buying like the merchandise of that person or like group, right?
Yeah, like I'd say it's the same, but it's definitely like in the case of Supreme, the Supreme effect, it's like it's it's like heightened. But then also with vinyls, like it's with vinyls, like unless it's like if it's a limited run, then it kind of applies, because it's also like the fact of like having that artificial supply, which in cases of Supreme and Yeezys is like extremely high. Like they limit it ridiculously, especially for what they are. So that's why it's like insane that they sell for so much and have so little supply, yet they're super like successful.
Okay. Would you say that one has more like function over the other?
What do you mean?
I guess a record sort of has more function in my eyes to what a pair of shoes does, because the pair of shoes, you can get a pair of shoes much easier and it will cost a lot less. But in the case of the record, there probably aren't many other ways you can get this record that has like the exact music on it. So do you think it is more functional in that aspect? Or the thing is, though, it is still just like a hobby thing, and, you know, like you're paying for it because you want it, and like you can access the music otherwise, but you're still paying for a physical thing. So maybe it's not that different.
Yeah, it's kind of just like, no matter what the product is, like it still comes back to like, if you want something to like suit the purpose and like satisfy, like it's like about the need you have. It's like it's more to that. So it's like if you're buying it for the function of it. So if I'm buying like a Supreme shirt to have a shirt on my back, then I've made a poor choice. But if I'm buying a Supreme shirt so that I can flex to my mates that I'm rolling in it, then like perhaps I've made a good choice. You know what I mean? Like depending on the value I put on it and the others around me put on it. So it's kind of
in every case, it's going to be about like want, not need. Like you want this thing because for sure. It's
like maybe you do need it, but like it probably something that is like limited to that like amount of supply, and like the price is way higher than it should be. It's like, is that your choice to go to? Yeah.
Hold that thought, Jono. A word from our sponsor. 78 players enter, 1 player leaves. 77 players do not have a good time. You guessed it, it's a battle royale. Spend ages scavenging and then deliver it all in a nice pile to somebody better than you. But now in space. Outrun the cosmic microwave background as you duke it out in Player Apex's Unknown Fort Zone. Featuring thousands of guns, but only 3 are any good. Visit hundreds of locations that use the same 5 house models in the biggest map in Battle Royale history. Use our exclusive code, a little derivative is the best and nobody can say otherwise, to get a Tonka truck that you can drive through space. Download now. So anyways, so far we've pretty much focused more on the side of it being an exclusive product that makes it have value, but I was going to bring up the point of like having influencer merchandise. So whether it be like, we said Kanye with the Yeezys or whatever, it might just be like people on YouTube who sell their own merch. There is exclusivity involved, but the only reason people are going to buy these things is because it is like they like that influencer and they want, you know, they want things that are associated with them. So do you think this is still the same, even though it might be like less exclusive?
Oh yeah, well it's like it's the same. Yeah, it definitely transfers. It's like I remember. So I used to, I still like rarely watch this car YouTuber named TJ Hunt, and he has like his own kind of company. And they run like merch runs, so they have like seasons and stuff, and like it's pretty good merch. So like I wouldn't mind getting some, but like it's definitely like. They do these limited runs so that people who are diehard fans are like, yes. When I was listening back in this year, and he sold a shirt that they never made again, and I have one, and it's awesome. So it's kind of like to them it's special in that way, and I can kind of say it's all in that kind of thing of adding value to your item, whether or not it actually physically has that value or not is not the question, but it's more about how much value do you make people think it has.
Yeah, so it comes down to the person still, and there is still like an element of exclusivity there, but sort of the point that I was making is people would only be buying it because they like that person. So another example I was going to bring up is, this is more of like a general thing, but sort of how Trump has Make America Great Again caps. That was part of like his presidential slogan, right? But people like would identify with that and they would go and buy the hats. And it's not necessarily those being produced in one place, but I'm sure like lots of knockoffs have been made and you can get them pretty much anywhere, and they're not like directly related to him. But the only people, well, not as many people I think would be wearing these hats if he didn't like bring it up as part of his campaign. And so it has value because he has like placed value on it, like he's made it more important than, you know, it extends beyond just saying like those words. So do you think this sort of has like any bearing in regards to
wasn't that slogan in that hat made, like he made those, like he made those hats and stuff?
Okay, yeah, but like I'm saying, I'm sure it's been replicated heaps and like there's knockoffs or whatever, and it's not like you're going to be getting it because it's an exclusive, like expensive product, right?
But yeah, but I think that's like slightly different to the Supreme Effect, because like that itself, like people put value on it for like for what it represents and what it stands for, but like that's what like every brand, good and product does. It's the difference of Supreme Effect is that they artificially lower how many they can actually give out, and because it generates even more interest in it. So people are like, oh man, there's only like 7 of these in the world, I need one, and they'll pay way more for it, even though it's still nothing. They'll be like, damn, I need one, because there's so much less of it. So it's kind of that feedback loop you get where it's like, this is worth nothing, but there's only 7 of them, therefore I must have it. And it kind of just feeds into itself, so they can charge more and more and more, and get much more value out of the little product they produce.
Exactly. So like they're just the totalitarian capitalist organization then, and they're doing it for money. So
yep.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, well, like, do you think that's an okay practice if people are still buying it?
I mean, it's marketing. It's like there's like a billion and one shady tactics used in business to get people's attention. Like there's this really cool book, I think it's called Hooked. It's written pretty much it's pretty much like it's all these tactics that like sites like Facebook use to kind of grab your attention, and like search, and like it's like design features of the app and site of stuff, how they use psychology to manipulate you into like using the site more, doing more, interacting more. Yeah. So like I think there's been heaps of research and stuff into like using these in like a commercial, like how to get people to buy more and do more. So I mean, it's you can think of what you think of it, but like in either case, it's going to happen. And like my take on it is that it's just part of life. And like I think if you're aware of it, then like that's all the better for you, because you'll be able to like know when to like call it in certain situations, like, oh, this is like not worth it to me or whatever.
Yeah, but for sure. It's like knowing is half the battle, and you can just take these things at face value, and you know, like you're still going to be using these things. It's not like you can avoid a lot of them, but I think knowing is important in that case.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, like you said before, it is sort of just about the marketing, right? Like the implied exclusivity. Do you think they're like Supreme themselves, for example, are actually doing that well as a company then? Because I was going to compare it to something like Coca-Cola, which obviously hasn't changed in like 100 years or whatever, right? Or like they changed the recipe once or whatever, but they're just selling the same product, right? But it's all about like the marketing making you want it. And it's just like a household name and everything. You see it everywhere. So yeah,
of course, it's definitely like I'd say in the case of like Coca-Cola, they've just set themselves as like the de facto like non-water drink to have, and I think like they've earned their way there. And like while many other companies have tried to like knock them off that pedestal, I think they've done a good job of like diversifying. Like they own other soft drinks now, and like they've got a good like grasp on that.
Yeah, okay.
But Supreme are definitely using like, I'd say like, I don't want to say grimier, but like is guerrilla the right word? I don't know. It's like
guerrilla warfare. That's funny.
Guerrilla marketing. No, what's guerrilla marketing? That's something else. I feel like that means maybe we'll do an episode on that. No, it's a new style of marketing where it's kind of not necessarily at the expense of the consumer, but it's definitely it's not like it doesn't make everyone happy.
Yeah, like I feel like it's sort of praise on like human nature a bit. It's just.
Yeah, most like it's kind of just like leeching onto the fact that people like to flex on other people for having stuff they don't and being better than other people. Yeah. I mean, maybe that's taking a little too far. I mean, yeah, like it's kind of just it goes on the thing that's saying, I have this when no one else has this, and I mean, it's not necessarily like inherently wrong. Like, good on you for doing something no one else has.
Or like it might just invite some different behavior in people.
Yeah,
is what
it's
you're
just
saying.
It's not definitely open to like the most cleanest and nicest of like interactions, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that sort of brings us to our next point is like, what do you think it reflects? Like, how does this reflect on the customer if like you're the one going and buying this stuff?
So like, I don't know, because it's weird. Like I was like talking about it and thinking about it. It's like, I know, like I'm not exactly the most frugal and like money savvy wise spender. That's not those weren't even words, but like, you know what I mean. Like I don't necessarily save my money and spend it wisely all the time. And I'd say that like sometimes I would spend money on stuff that I think is worth to me.
Yeah.
But probably isn't worth for the functional use of it. So, but it's kind of, in the end, it's like, it is your money, so you can do what you want on it with it. Like, if you have the money, spend it. Like, do whatever you want. Like, it's you earn it, you get to use it. But like, on the other hand, it's also kind of like encouraging this kind of like marketing. Is
exactly,
also like
you're feeding into it, right? It's just like you're a cog in the machine that lets them go on and do this.
Yeah, it's kind of like they'll only kind of keep doing stuff like that if you keep playing them. And even going back to when we're talking about games and stuff, it's like why loot boxes are so like popular, because they make them, like people still buy them. So why wouldn't they do them? If you want to make a game survive, just put loot boxes in it, and like every game ever like it keeps on going, even though everyone hates it and complains. It doesn't stop because, you know, people pay for it and they get stuff. And
well, I feel like in that situation, the people who are complaining aren't really the ones that it's targeted at. It's sort of like we were saying before, like preys on people. It's just like, you know, it's like you get addicted to gambling, like you're opening these loot boxes.
Exactly. No, it's definitely like the people complaining aren't the ones buying them clearly, but it's just it's all like, I don't know. It's kind of, I guess it's like when it impacts you. And if you're not the one buying it and it impacts you, then I guess it's kind of a different story that you can kind of like not necessarily like perceive it as a good thing. Because like, especially like, say for example, right, in old school RuneScape, they don't have any sort of like pay to win microtransaction like kind of stuff because of the history that game has had. And so it's kind of like a thing where like everyone doesn't like it. Like everyone doesn't enjoy that kind of aspect of gaming. And so while the cases are rare, but like there are cases where people just refuse to kind of adopt that behavior and support it from like a customer level.
Yeah, for sure. So like it doesn't fly everywhere, but like we're talking about it now, so obviously it has happened in some places and we know about it. But I was just going to say quickly from my perspective, I would be quite opposite to you, and like I would spend my money much more wisely, and I would never be interested in buying anything like this just because it has the brand like attached to it. Like I just have no interest. But I guess it depends on like what you're after, because we were talking about records before, and like I've bought records in the past, so yeah, it's all just different. I guess it just comes down to like whatever you value. All right, so that pretty much brings us to the end of everything that we wanted to say on this discussion. Do you think this is going to change your attitude towards Supreme Effect and Supreme Effect related things in the future?
I mean, like with every episode, I think it's either going to make me more excited to learn more about the world or more terrified. And I think in this case, it's piqued my interest in the kind of other marketing techniques that companies use to kind of sap money from my shrinking wallet.
No, it is quite interesting. I agree, but I think it's just good to be aware of these sorts of things.
Yeah, you know, it's like and I mean, like, I guess if I didn't say it already, I'll reiterate. But like, I don't actually buy any of these kind of like hyper marked up like suppliers or anything. Like, but like I have, like, unfortunately, I've been once a fall victim to a cheeky loot crate. So I guess it's like I guess being aware of it and just knowing kind of the value that they provide and what they actually take from you is like half the battle. Like you said, it's half the battle. So I think we're all the better for knowing what's going on.
Knowledge is power, 100%. Okay. Well, that pretty much brings us to the end of The Little Derivative, and I hope you've derived a little enjoyment from listening to this. My name is Evan.
And my name's Jonathan, and that's all, folks.